Hey everyone, my name is Frank and I'm mainly fed up. So this was the first video I wanted to put out. I wanted to get about an introduction video, let everyone know who I was and what it was that I do and how I came to the decision that talking to people on the internet and letting them know my opinions on matters was a good idea and something worthwhile for me to do. So a little bit about me. I grew up in New Jersey, uh, more the rural section of New Jersey, if you can believe that. There's still rural areas, or where there were. Moved to Philadelphia about 20 years ago, spent a decade there going to school, which is actually where I met my wife. We both decided we were tired of the city life, and this was pre-COVID, so nothing really got out of hand. We just didn't see a city life in our future, so we bought a house, got married, and moved up to Maine, started a family, and put down some roots, and just like enjoying a pretty comfortable middle class existence in, you know, Maine. So that's how we ended up here. Um, so politically, I've always voted conservative because I've been a little bit of a contrarian. I kind of like to go against the grain, and this was back when everyone was pushing the left agenda. I mean, it wasn't really a left agenda. It was just Democrats are the cool kids, and if you vote Republican, you're just boring, stodgy, suit wearing kind of a nerd who didn't really have much different policies than the Democrats. It was just a little bit of a slower pace, and they were more of a slight resistance to the Democrat agenda. So, excuse me, I gotta look at my notes. Doing this a little old school. I haven't quite got all the everything set up to where I can just go and see things off the internet, which is a goal I'm getting to. Um, so, like I said, always voted Republican. I think my first election I could vote in was the, what's it, 2000? It was Bush's first term. So I voted for him, went through the whole hanging Chad deal, and politics was pretty normal. And then, 9/11 happened, and I fully bought into the propaganda of Iraq having weapons of mass destruction and supported the whole war going over there and fighting terrorism and rah rah go America. Um, but then once that all kind of fell apart, it came pretty skeptical of the whole federal government and just government in general up until the '08 election when Ron Paul ran. So in the meantime, like after finding out everything was all BS, and then you get this scrawny little doc from Kentucky spouting liberty and freedom, and like so many other people, that opened my eyes to libertarianism and uh, a bunch of the freedom principles that this country is founded on and has lost along the way. Um, Really kind of opened my eyes to that philosophy, and I never really put a whole lot of thought into politics or political activism, and up until recently, still didn't necessarily think it was a worthwhile endeavor because once he got pushed out, you could tell nothing really changed. There wasn't a whole lot of differences in either party platform. Republicans always ran on small government, and they never did anything about it. They always increased government the same, if not more than the Democrats did. And it was an always super interventionalist, pro-war, both sides, which is just unbelievable to think back that that is what America was and what we supported. Um, because looking back, it was all just BS, which is not something you want to really realize that your government's just pushing a bunch of uh, lies to you. So 2016 comes around. Voted for Trump because I did not like Hillary Clinton. I did not like Bill Clinton when he was in office, and Hillary, her time as Secretary of State under Obama, the whole thing. I just can't support anything that she represented, and the fact that they were pushing she was a woman and it's her time. Just no. She was an awful, terrible human being. The fact that she's a woman has nothing to do with it. She's just power hungry war monster. I mean, unreal what that she made it as far as she did, and people couldn't push back. But that goes to show you the whole conspiracy theory that the Clintons just leave a trail of bodies in their wake. So I voted for Trump because it'd be hilarious if he won, right? And just like Michael Moore said, it was going to be the biggest middle finger to the establishment and to the whole, I hate saying it, but like the globalist agenda that was basically gutting American values and American culture for what I would perceive as a internet-based culture that is all more or less unified. So I watched that whole election, the 2016 election when Trump finally won. I giggled like a little idiot for way too long and thought it was some of the funniest things. And I figured it was just going to be more of the same, but for the most part, it was a fairly positive presidency. I mean, the first one where I can think of where we actually had pretty good outcomes throughout the entire 4 years. I mean, minus the whole COVID debacle that was just completely screwed up his whole term as far as I'm concerned. It was pretty mishandled. I think everyone mishandled that. So all the establishment, I think Trump could have done a better job. I mean, this is looking back on everything we know now, and being able to second guess things and seeing some of the results. But I distinctly remember hearing about a strange disease coming out of China where they were welding people in their houses and people were collapsing on the street, and it seemed pretty bad. And then Trump went through and tried closing the border down, banning people from traveling from China or other countries, and it was labeled xenophobic and all these other things. And then I also remember Nancy Pelosi going to Chinese New Year at the start of the pandemic saying there's nothing to be afraid of. Chinese people are good, which sure, Chinese people are fine. It wasn't against them. It was a unknown disease that was making its way across the globe. So, sorry, referring to my notes. So, the 2020 election, the first politician I've ever donated to was Tulsi Gabbard because I enjoyed her message, and I didn't agree with some of her domestic issues, but she was anti-war, anti-intervention, and after almost 2 decades of fighting in the Middle East, we don't need to be involved in that anymore. It's completely unacceptable that we have any issues that we need to militarily be involved in when there's an ocean in between us. I'm sure there's going to be other people being like, oh yeah, we're there to promote peace and democracy and rah, 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 and all this other BS. But does anyone remember the South Park movie, Team America, from Trey Parker and Matt Stone? It was a giant joke that America's the world police. So, no, I think and along with many other people, were just tired of it. So, um, I think that the election of Joe Biden, I mean, there's clearly some sketchy things going on there. I don't think it was the voting machines or any of that. I think there were rule changes that were put in place that benefited Joe Biden's uh, election. So I think putting Joe Biden in was the last gasp of the establishment and just the bureaucracy trying to hold on to power. So I think all in all that that leftism is dying and this globalist hegemony is also on its way out, and I think Donald Trump has a lot to do with that. So whether or not it's going to end up being a positive thing, that's yet to be seen, but it's nice to see that there is in fact a change in the status quo, which, I mean, let's be real, it just was not working for Americans for a whole number of reasons. Um, so that kind of leads me to the 2024 election, which Trump managed to put together quite the coalition of different viewpoints and has really sort of become the unifying figure for what is essentially a very diverse coalition of disparate political ideologies. And no longer are the Republicans uh, the super religious, um, just neocons and the traditional Republicans that wanted to censor music for some naughty words in them. Um, there's a whole bunch of ideas, and essentially the unifying theme behind Republicans as they stand now is that they're not the left. And what I mean is the Democrats have become a party that has no real policies or moral convictions. They are uh, essentially stuck to whatever the social media algorithms are pushing towards, uh, what I guess you could consider their constituents. Um, they're all over the place. They don't have any principles that they stick to. They are anti-war when it comes to Israel and Gaza, but they are pro-war when it comes to Ukraine and Russia. So I mean, pick a side. It's you can't have it both ways. Um, excuse me. But like the like what I said, I think for the most part, there's enough good changes happening at the federal level where there doesn't need to be a whole lot of information shared or put out. And there's a whole bunch of other people doing a much better job at that than what I can do. What I've noticed is there seems to be a distinct lack of personal opinions and commentary from people who live in Maine on Maine specific issues, whether or not they exist or they're just harder to find because we are a fairly small population-wise state, um, and there's clearly a bunch of the left-wing propaganda news sources, and I mean not even propaganda, just left-leaning and left-biased news sources out there, which makes everyone seem to still think that the right's full of Nazis and every other ism and that you can come up with. So what I plan to do, what my goal is to show people that regular people are standing up and pushing back against this, and it's okay to get called names if you don't agree with somebody, because I've been called names by a whole bunch of people, and it no longer bothers me in the slightest. Um, that's why I originally started my account as an anonymous account, because I didn't want to deal with the pushback or the blowback from saying something that someone didn't like, and just all that. I mean, it is true. People say the right's violent, but I mean, if you've been paying attention at all, it's not the right. It's everyone who supports, well, not everyone who supports, but it's a large faction of the left that are okay with instituting political violence. So my goal is just to show people that there's other people that think like them, and that yeah, I might not get it right all the time, or my opinions on something might change, but that's okay because we're all people. You don't need to be stuck and pigeonholed into one specific thought process. So I think if more people can see that someone else standing up, we have a pretty good shot of turning this state around. And like I said, there are some issues with Maine greatly, but I think the state is worth fighting for. And one way or the other, I don't want to leave. I like it here. So if I think we can get some uh, changes made and start writing the course of the state, uh, and just really make Maine what it was, a nice place to visit where people are polite and you are allowed to have different ideas from one another, but you're still all very polite to one another. So we'll see how it goes. Like I said, just getting started, got to figure out all the technology. But if you would, please like, share, and subscribe to uh, my channels everywhere. Just look for MainelyFedUp. I'm on X, Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, but I don't really use those because just a lot of extra nonsense. You can mostly find me on X, and I'm going to upload these longer videos on Rumble and uh, see what else I can post on X. But pretty much anywhere, just Google search MainelyFedUp. Good talking with you.